Hello, my name is Maya and this is Shining Bull Vedic Astrology. Today I'm going to speak with you regarding Bitcoin and what's going to happen with Bitcoin. The first thing is that the birth chart that I decided to use is for the time 7:17 p.m. and 26 seconds on May 22nd, 2010 in Jacksonville, Florida. And many of you probably know why I chose this time. It's because that's the first time that Bitcoin was given, was associated with value as we generally recognize to be the case, because at that day, time, and from that location, somebody who went by the name or goes by the name of Laszlo announced on a forum that he had just been able to purchase pizza with a lot of Bitcoin. So now when I put that into my software and analyzed, I can tell you that I think I made a good decision using that as my birth chart. So so the first thing that I'll say is that beginning on April 19th, 2016 and going until April 19th, 2026, Bitcoin is running its moon dasha, and that is the period of Vedic astrological time in which the planet moon is going to have the most significance for Bitcoin. Okay, so I will say that also the moon is the lord of the constellation that was rising on the eastern horizon at that time that Laszlo proclaimed having bought this pizza with Bitcoin, thereby giving Bitcoin value. So at that moment, the constellation that was rising on the eastern horizon was Rohini, and again, Rohini is ruled by the moon. So also at that time, at that moment, the moon was in the fourth house, where it has what we say directional strength, or digbala. And the fourth house is the house that is on the other side of the planet, completely unseen, like you can't see it. It's like the opposite of when you're looking at the midheaven. So the midheaven is the 10th house, and opposite from that, which you cannot see, because you would have to like look through the planet Earth to see it, is the fourth house. And at that moment in time, when this happened, when Bitcoin was born, the moon was in the constellation Uttara Falguni, which is ruled by the sun. So what that means is, number one, since the moon rules the ascendant constellation, that means that the moon is not only the ruler of this period of time, as in it's not only the most important planet during this period that began in 2016 in April and will go all the way until in the 19th of April 2026. So it's not only that it's the most important planet during this time period, it's also that the moon is the most important planet for Bitcoin's dharma, or Bitcoin's purpose for existing on this planet. so what we do is we look at the moon, and we know the moon was in Uttara Falguni. And now that means that during this whole time period, themes from this constellation are going to be playing out. And it also means that the themes of this constellation are directly related to the purpose, to the dharma of Bitcoin. So this nakshatra, Uttara Falguni, deals with partnerships and contracts. And now, when you look at the ruler of this nakshatra, the ruler is the sun. And when you count from where the moon is, so if you take the moon as the ascendant, so you take the moon's position as the first house, then you see that 9 houses away from where the moon is in the natal chart is where the sun is exalted in Aries. So that means that the 9th house in this period, in this dasha, the 9th house, because it's the 9th house from the dasha lord, from the moon, that's where the sun, who rules the nakshatra that the moon is in, is the most powerful. Now, that means that if we put out if we associate in our collective consciousness, if we associate Bitcoin with the themes of partnerships and of contracts, then that's going to give the moon strength to deliver during this period. And we already know, since when this period began, that's when the price slowly started to rise. So even if you don't know any astrology, you can already, you should know, but in any case, it's very clear even from that, that the moon is good for us if we want the value of the currency to rise, right? So we want to give strength to this dasha lord. So when we do things, when we associate Bitcoin with these themes of partnerships, maybe we're putting out news about partnerships, and about how Bitcoin is related with the theme of contracts, which obviously we know that's like basic fact of the whole, why this is valuable. But anyway, the point is that even though it sounds basic, even though it sounds like something that we all know, okay, when we focus on that, what we're doing is we're giving strength to the sun, because we're so that's because we're bringing up the dharma of Bitcoin, which is the 9th house as well, right? So we're associating Bitcoin with its purpose, basically, or its most, which, as I've said, is contracts and partnerships. And when we do that as well, what we're doing is, since the vital energy of, in this case, of the sun, it's traveling in the direction from this place of exaltation in Aries. It's going to be traveling, then it'll reach its place of the Multrikon sign, which is where the moon is actually, and it'll continue till Libra, where it's debilitated. So by strengthening this knowledge, this public knowledge of what the real, most important, most basic, fundamental purpose or trait of Bitcoin is, we're also going to be mitigating the adverse publicity or the adverse things that happen when the energy when there's energy in Libra, which is the third house from the moon. And so that's going to be related with like, if you look at it as a person, it would be the younger sibling, and I look at it as, in this case, altcoins as being like a younger sibling of Bitcoin. So altcoins, and also bad press, like, or not unfocused press, right? Because the third house is also communications, like normal, regular communications. So by strengthening like the ninth house from the moon, then we're mitigating the effects of the third house from the moon, which is where the sun is not so strong. So, and then the other thing is that the sun, it's exalted in Aries, but the first constellation of Aries, Ashvini, it contains the first pada is Vargotama, so it's a pada that's a very powerful place. So we can say like the sun is super powerful if it's there. So now, what's interesting about this is that this nakshatra, Ashvini, it's a constellation that deals with healing plants, with natural medicine, with and you know, like in the Indian system, of course, actually we use food itself as medicine in Ayurveda. So food is also in India, food is considered, it's used like medicine. So now I was already going to say, because of that when I like regarding this contracts and partnerships and the dharma of Bitcoin, I was going to already suggest to you that associating Bitcoin's association with these fields of healing plants, of medicinal foods, of course, and like as in like these industries, you using Bitcoin, or Bitcoin being of value to these fields of human production, or any kind of association will be really good for our sun, and therefore our moon, and therefore the value of Bitcoin. But there's another thing about this, which is that when this dasha began, which is the dasha where the price of Bitcoin first started slowly rising, on April 19th, 2016, the sun was in Ashvini. Okay, that's the transiting sun, okay, on that day. And it was in the pada, which makes it fall in the D9 chart, if you know about this, and if you don't, that's fine. But it means that the energy of the sun was communicating itself, as though it was sort of communicating itself through Ashvini via Rohini. Okay, and Rohini is, as you know, I already said, it's the Lagna nakshatra, but it's also the last nakshatra that's going to be activated during this planetary period. So I'll speak about that in a second. But that's where the sun was on that day, okay? Now, when I looked up Bitcoin news from that day, April 19th, 2016, I found an article about organic farmers in New Hampshire, I think. I'm pulling up the visual so we can see. Who were using Bitcoin in their microeconomy. So that was a long time ago for us. But that is a very powerful thing to go back to focus on at this time. So people who are creators, programmers within this world, I'm an astrologer, but there are people who are watching who are hopefully like people who are programmers and creators. So that's like something that I don't know what it sounds like to you, but what I'm saying is that it's a very powerful connection to make at this time that's going to directly affect the value of Bitcoin, like at a cosmic level. Okay, so I don't know whether it's like supply chain technology, whatever, I don't know, like I'm not able to use like technical language, but I hope that I'm making my point clear, that basically that these industries or these fields related with the nakshatra Ashwini, so medicinal plants, nutritional healing, of course, and organic farming falls into that, because for example, in the Vedic system, which this is all based on, food is medicine. So that's what I'm saying. That connection is really important. So I mentioned that the last nakshatra that would be activated during this moon period would be Rohini. So what I mean by that is that during this whole period, the moon's nakshatras, there are 3 nakshatras of the moon, and each one will be activated in order from the position of the moon in the natal chart. So, and this is using the Pi Padati technique, and you can see if you're interested in astrology, you can see videos on this technique on the KRS channel. So using this technique, so the first nakshatra that's going to be the most important, other than of course Uttara Falguni, which is going to be important throughout this period, is Hasta nakshatra. And that nakshatra will be active until August 19th, 2019. So for a very little more time. And that nakshatra is basically about, like, just imagine, like, it's like about how, like, basically like a lot of us are speculating about Bitcoin, or maybe dreaming about how it's going to make our lives golden. It's going to create a golden path for us, normal people. So like that's what we're hearing the most about, or that's what the general focus is when people think about Bitcoin during this period. So the next period will begin at the end of that period on August 19th of this year, so very soon. And it will go until December 19th of the year 2022. And this nakshatra is Shravana. So, regarding Shravana nakshatra, this nakshatra deals especially with the planets Venus and Jupiter. And basically, in the story of this nakshatra, Vamana, an avatar of Vishnu, who is associated with Jupiter. Okay, so let's say, so you can think of this as Jupiter or Jupiter's force. Basically defeats a demon named Mahabali, and that demon was getting advice from Shukra, from Venus. So when Jupiter defeats this demon, or Vamana, but let's just associate this with Jupiter because it's the avatar associated with Jupiter. So then Jupiter, or Vamana, conquers huge, like the whole, everything, like the whole of existence, basically. Okay. And in Bitcoin's chart, Venus is the lord of the ascendant. It's the Lagna lord, and it's also the fifth house lord. The fifth house of Libra being actually where the sun is debilitated. And Venus is located in Ardra Nakshatra. And Ardra Nakshatra is ruled by Rahu. And now what about Rahu? Well, Rahu in the Bitcoin chart is in the sign of Purvashada. And Purvashada Nakshatra, not the sign, the Nakshatra of Purvashada. And that Nakshatra has two planetary rulers, Venus and Jupiter. And the other thing is that in the chart of Bitcoin, Rahu is at the cuspal nakshatra level, at the degree level. He is the most important for regarding like the work that Bitcoin has to do on this plane. The Artha houses, because of the and this is arrived at from the Lagna degrees. So now what about Jupiter? Jupiter in the chart is located in Pisces, which is its own sign, in Uttarashada, which is ruled by Saturn, and it's in the 11th house, which is the house of the greatest gains, and it's also the house where Jupiter is the karaka of the 11th house. So Jupiter being in the 11th house for Bitcoin is means that it can give great things, great gains, and well, also because it's strong, it's in its own sign. And about the nakshatra, it's in Saturn's nakshatra, right? As I said, well, Saturn in Bitcoin's chart is the yoga karaka. So because it rules Kendra house and a Trikona house. So you don't need to know that. If you know what it means, you know what it means. If you don't, the point is that Saturn is a planet that for this chart is also capable of giving good. So basically, what I'll say is that Jupiter is going to give all of us who either hold Bitcoin or who are developing Bitcoin, who are part of what Bitcoin is, Jupiter is going to give us a lot. And we are going to gain a lot. But the reason for our gain is not going to be a reason that probably most of us would expected. So, in my opinion, it's really important right now that we do a certain, like maybe you can call it good karma, to, you can think of it as to encourage Guru Jupiter to give us the gains that he's going to give to Bitcoin, and we will benefit from that. Or you can think of it however you want, but I feel that since Jupiter's nakshatra is in it's a nakshatra that is related with the deep, deep ocean, and Rahu's nakshatra, which is ruled by both Venus and Jupiter, is also related with the ocean. These stories, and one suggestion that I have is that if you are a person who is going to benefit from the increase of value of Bitcoin, then if you keep present in your intention the well-being of the oceans, for example, maybe you decide to cut out using plastic completely from your life, or maybe if you're a developer, you're working on a project that relates the blockchain with cleaning the oceans, the deep oceans. I'm just like giving some examples, okay? The point is that if you do this good karma, you can say, if you want to think of it that way, that's I feel it's important, because what's going to happen is that between the end of March of 2020 and the beginning of April of 2020, so in a space of a few weeks, basically, I think it's like the last week of March and the first week of April of 2020, transiting Rahu will transit over Bitcoin's natal Venus, who, as I said, is in Aritra Nakshatra ruled by Rahu, and this is going to set off the theme of Shravana Nakshatra in the biggest way. And basically the world is going to change, and Bitcoin is going to soar in value because of this, something that the world is going to experience. So that is that's going to be good for us in terms of the increase in value of our currency, but it's not going to be for a reason that we may have expected it would be for. And also it's like I can say, for example, like Jupiter will just, for example, be getting ready to transit out of the 8th house of unexpected gains. It's going to be an unexpected gain. Unexpected in the sense of the nature of the gain. So, yeah. And so that's the major point. And then beginning December 19th, 2022 until April 19th, 2026. That's the last period ruled by Rohini, and that I will deal with in the future. That will be another intense period. And where Bitcoin is concerned. But there's no reason to look into that now because that's way in the future. So that's all. Hopefully this is like useful. And you can look at my information below regarding consultations. And I accept cryptocurrency. So you can go to my my webpage that you see in the info. Okay, thank you very much. Wishing you well. Bye for now.